The winter arc is here, and it's about time to lock in before the new year rolls around. Now, most people either find the winter arc too intimidating to start, or just overall cringe. But in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can tackle your own winter arc with a 7-step process without the unnecessary noise or any of the cringe. So not only will you unlock that anime physique, you'll also kill all your bad habits and become the protagonist of your own story. Now, before we become our strongest selves, we need to kill our weakest selves with the Purge arc. The perfect example of this is Zenitsu from Demon Slayer. He started off as this weak crybaby who was only useful while he's asleep, and without getting into spoilers, after killing his weakest self, metaphorically, we then see him later in the movie absolutely wrecking face. For us normies, our weakest self isn't the fact that we can't wield a katana all cool like, although I do sometimes get a little jealous. No, in fact, our weakest self is the version of us that keeps doing the bad habits we want to get rid of, which is why I'm going to show you how you can kill them off completely. Now, there are many bad habits, like scrolling, binge eating, substance abuse, just to name a few. But I want to instead focus on the biggest bad habit that I know all of you guys have. Because if you kill this habit, you can kill literally any habit. And fellas, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Corn. It's corn. Being addicted to corn is probably one of the worst habits you could possibly have. And it's a lot more dangerous than you think. Not that I'm comparing this addiction to things like alcohol, drugs, or anything that is life-threatening, but trust me, I've been in that situation, you're probably in that situation, and even my community has been in that situation. These posts that I'm showing you on screen are actual messages from my Shonen Strength community with real guys fighting actual battles. So you're probably not the only one fighting these demons. Oh, but Kevin, isn't corn healthy and helps me to realize my sexual energies? No, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it's probably going to keep you single. Your monkey brain is hyper-fixated on one thing in life: find wife, make baby. But if you watch corn and start choking the chicken, you're going to feel that urge become satisfied, which will kill your motivation to find a mate, so to speak. And because most of us feel shame and guilt when that happens, we start to isolate ourselves, which makes it worse. By the way, if you're already in a relationship, it's gonna have the same effect, but within the relationship, you're not gonna be as attracted to her. Second, it turns your brain to mush. If you can spike your dopamine with such intense stimulation all the time, your brain just gets used to the amount of pleasure that you're experiencing, so much so that your day-to-day activities are going to become more dull. Productivity is going to suffer, your work is going to suffer, and you'll become less happy. Lastly, probably the worst of it is it's free and available anytime. The fact that you could just access it 24/7 with zero cost, it's almost sinister. Imagine if I wanted to, I need a fix of that magic powder, just scoop into my pocket, ooh, it's there. Oh, no wonder people get addicted. But don't worry, because I do have a 5-step process that can help you get over this addiction and any other bad habit that you might have. First things first, to actually address the addiction, we need to stop addressing the addiction. Corn addiction is less about the act itself, but more so of what is driving us to act. There's usually some other root cause that is triggering us to want to behave in that way. So we need to figure out what that something else actually is and find those triggers that are bringing us to the corn. And I think the best way to eliminate those triggers is the second step, finding purpose. The number one variable associated with corn addiction, according to studies, is sense of meaninglessness. So you gotta find purpose, a reason to endure, some long-term goals for yourself, something that makes life feel better and worth living, and not having to waste time on useless things like corn. Thirdly, stop feeling shame. Shame leads to watching corn, and corn leads to more shame, which then leads to more corn, more shame, more corn. It's just a corn and shame sandwich. So if you relapse, don't beat yourself up. Instead, think, okay, what actually triggered me to relapse, and how can I do less of that? Fourth, you gotta replace the void. Corn is just a coping mechanism, as I said before. So finding ways to replace that mechanism is going to be much healthier. Fifth, do not go cold turkey. A lot of us cannot handle a full stop. So make it a goal to reduce the habit over time instead of just full stopping. That way you'll allow yourself some wiggle room, you're gonna feel less shame, and you're gonna feel less shame if you relapse. Last but not least, you gotta remember you're not alone. Remember the posts I was showing you from my community? Well, these guys are actively looking for ways to fight these battles and more tactics to defeat these demons. And honestly, seeing them win these fights makes me want to win too, because it's not just about self-improvement anymore. It's like we're all characters in the same anime arc and we're getting stronger together. That's what it feels like, and it feels pretty good. But once you kill your old self, you're now ready to step into the protagonist arc. It works like this. Protagonists don't just get their powers and save the day. The true heroes strive to get stronger so that they can defeat their enemies, the big bad. They train, they fight, they go through hell just to finally destroy that one big bad anime villain. But it's not just the villains. A protagonist also has rivals, whom they strive to grow better than. Think of the rival school from JJK, or Vegeta and Goku. Not because they're villains, but because they push us to become stronger and vice versa. So one of the things you must have when you start your winter arc is enemies and rivals. You want to have that fire in your belly that screams at you to become better and come out on top. This obviously makes you improve tenfold because now you have something to prove. And with rivals, having like a group of people that are pushing you to become better and you're pushing them to become better, that's just automatically gonna make you better. But before we talk about rivals, let's dive into finding your enemy this winter arc. Now, you don't just go out on the street and declare somebody as an enemy and then beat them up and then take their cash. Instead, the enemy you want to deal with is yourself, or at least the self that you killed during your purge arc. This is less about becoming better than others and more so about conquering the person that you do not want to become. You need to treat your old self like a big bad anime villain. I did this all the time when I was focusing on self-improvement. I imagined myself as this weak, overweight, addicted to corn, just a complete absolute loser who only played video games all his life. I'm just saying that, that's a visceral thought. I do not want to become him. You need to do the exact same thing and picture yourself as your worst enemy. You don't hate him. It's still you, but he is not somebody that you want to be close to. He is your enemy and you need to use all the power you have to conquer that enemy. Now, let's talk about rivals, the other people you're competing with to get on top. Having rivals makes you dangerous because now you really have something to prove. But how do you find rivals? First, you can always ask your homies. Having gym buddies to join you in the winter arc will not only make your journey feel a lot easier, but also a lot more fun and competitive. Although some of your friends may not have the same mindset as you, so it's gonna be hard to convince them to get them on board. The second thing you could do is join some Discord, subreddit, or even a Facebook group. If you find one of them, it's very easy to get people with the same mindset, but finding that group in the first place is gonna take some time. The best thing I think you could do is actually enter a competition where you're really competing with other people. In fact, this is exactly what I'm doing in my Shonen Strength community. I recently launched the Winter Arc Games, where each member has 90 days to transform themselves and become better, where the top 3 transformations win some fancy cash prizes, some free coaching, and a lot more. This competition is going to happen about a week after this video is uploaded, so if you really want to level up this winter, you can join us in the Shonen Strength community. You now have your enemies and your rivals, but now you need to lock in and get rid of all of the distractions. Because if you have a plan, but you struggle to follow it, you are cooked. That's why we have the reset arc. Because the one person you don't want to be is Saitama. Saitama, for whatever reason, cannot ever be in the right place at the right time. He's always distracted, eating some fries, or hunting for bargains at the supermarket. And yes, he eventually does defeat the bad guy, but we always see him first doing the most irrelevant things while the city is being destroyed and eaten by massive centipedes. My self-improvement schedules used to look like Saitama's day-to-day. Wake up, look at Instagram, check messages, work a little, watch YouTube, scroll, work a little, walk around, scroll again, get back to work, scroll again, get back to work, and then eat dinner, maybe work again, go to bed. And at the end of the day, I'd feel like I was working for hours, only to really not get that much work done at all. And the reason for that, just like Saitama, my mind is not in the right place. And I struggled with this forever until I started implementing this amazing life hack, dopamine fasting. This allowed me to focus 100% on my work and minimize any distractions that popped up. It's stupidly simple, but it works. For the first 10 hours of your day, do nothing except focusing on the most important tasks you need to do. Plus essentials like, of course, eating, cooking, or whatever errands you have to run. But no scrolling, no watching YouTube, and no doing random stuff that has nothing to do with your main priorities. I even stopped listening to music while I work, which actually seemed to help me work better. And the reason this works is because you don't go through those sudden dopamine spikes when you scroll, watch YouTube, or watch anime. Because every time I have some strong dopamine in the morning, my brain just wants more of that. I've got a monkey brain, It's stupid. It just wants more dopamine. Using this tactic has allowed me to stay super hyper-focused, mainly because I've got nothing else to keep me entertained. It stops the urge to scroll mindlessly, and it does make the final dopamine hit so much better when I'm finished those 10 hours. Now, you might not be able to do this organically, so having something like an app blocker really helps. A community member in the Shonen Strength community gave like a list of cool app blockers for us to use. For me, I'm personally a fan of Minimalist Phone. Not a sponsor, I just like them. This is what it looks like. My phone screen is basically boring and nothing. Trust me, if you start doing this in the winter arc, you are going to be unstoppable. But only if you implement this next arc, the action arc. In this arc, you're going to become so much more powerful by just doing one thing, and that's beating procrastination. But Kevin, how the hell does beating procrastination make you powerful? Am I gonna do Kamehamehas because I did my homework? Now, I don't mean that kind of power. Let me explain. First of all, I want you to think of the least powerful sorcerer in Jujutsu Kaisen. Let's just say that's Kugisaki. It's just an example, do not fight me. If she wanted to, say, fight Sukuna, she'd probably have to train for years, master her cursed energy and cursed techniques, or become a very proficient weapons user. Muster the courage to fight Sukuna, then and only then challenge him and actually win the fight. Now let's think of the most powerful sorcerer in Jujutsu Kaisen. As an example, Gojo. For Gojo, it's a lot different. If he wanted to, the moment he thought about fighting Sukuna, he could probably go fight Sukuna. Sure, maybe he'd prep a little, but it wouldn't take as much time as Kugisaki. In both scenarios, they both fight Sukuna, but Gojo is clearly more powerful because the time between him thinking about fighting Sukuna and actually fighting Sukuna is very short. I mean, Gojo is probably the closest to a god figure in JJK. And theoretically, when God, the most powerful being possible, thinks of something, it happens. Meaning, if we want to emerge from this winter arc more powerful, we need to be able to do stuff the moment we think about doing stuff. In other words, stop procrastinating. I know that's easier said than done. I have been a chronic procrastinator my whole life, and sometimes I still fall victim to it. But there's always one method that I use that breaks me out of that procrastination cycle, and that is the 5-minute rule. Imagine the task that you have been dreading doing for hours or even days. Instead, just commit 5 minuscule minutes to your task. And if you don't want to do it after 5 minutes, then congratulations, at least you started. But you're going to find most of the time that the biggest hurdle to getting a task done is actually just getting into the task. And once you pass that first hurdle, you're going to see that there was nothing to be afraid of in the first place. But once you can take action, it's important not to lose that momentum, which is why we have the momentum arc. A lot of us start our journeys kind of like how new Demon Slayers start theirs. They go in all excited to slay demons, only to realize, oh damn, this is kind of hard. I'm gonna die. They crash and burn, completely stop whatever they're doing, and then possibly get eaten in the process. Not that you're gonna get eaten during the winter arc, except you, Roger. I'm gonna eat you. But most of us get so excited to start something new that's gonna change our lives that we completely go too hard, burn out, lose momentum, and we give up in 3 weeks. What we wanna do instead is develop small habits that have a huge impact. That way we don't crash and burn all at once, but instead build momentum over time. But I'm not just going to give you any random good habits that other YouTubers are going to give you. Instead, I'm going to give you exactly what I do and what works for me. Now, I'm consistent with these habits, but I don't do them every day. But I encourage you to try them out for a consecutive amount of time to see if it works for you. First and foremost, wake up before sunrise. For me, that's 6:30 a.m. There's something that's so nice of the couple hours before the sun actually goes up. You'll find peak creativity and productivity during this time, and it sets your day up just right. Next, make your bed. I got into this habit over the last couple of years, and I honestly thought it was pretty useless, but it actually shocked me. The days that I didn't make my bed were probably the least productive days. It's probably because when I'm not productive, I'm not in the right headspace. And then when I'm not in the right headspace, I don't think about making my bed at all. So this just helps to ground me and accomplish my first win of the day. Next, read a book or listen to a podcast. I used to hate reading. I thought, it's not for me. But when I discovered the beauty of audiobooks, and I was able to consume knowledge while walking or doing other mundane tasks, and podcasts, absolutely amazing if you want to listen to some intellectuals have conversations. Become an educated member of society. My personal recommendation, Modern Wisdom. Love Chris, the way he talks. I hope someday he invites me on his podcast, although I dream. After that, journaling. I used to think journaling was also useless, but it honestly gave me some mental clarity. And I don't do anything fancy. I just write like 5 things I'm grateful for, and at the end of the day, I self-reflect on things that went well, things that went poorly, and what I'm going to do different. And last but not least, meditation. I used to have problems with staying focused and present, but after practicing some meditation every morning, I find that I'm much more able to focus on work for longer periods of time, and I'm much more aware of my thoughts as they arrive. But if you go through your whole winter arc and just emerge with some good habits and less procrastination, that's fine. That's in fact good, but it's not really the point. We want to emerge completely different people. So we need to go through that evolution arc. Before any protagonist goes through any training arc, they have a very basic use of their abilities. But once they finish that training arc, they come out with new skills and techniques to make the villains piss their pants. One thing that you've got to be doing when going through the winter arc is learning a new skill. Reason being is simple. Having something you're good at or something you're striving to be good at automatically gives you something to do and gives you a sense of meaning. And this helps to exercise everything we've already learned. Beating procrastination, distracting yourself from bad habits, and even help you do some dopamine fasting. And second, if you come out of the winter arc with something you are pretty good at, you can use that as leverage to make money. You could start a business, or you could advance your existing career. But Kevin, I don't know what to learn. If you don't know what skill you need to learn, pick anything that is deemed high value, whether that's coding, copywriting, videography, content creation, or even if you want to, learn a new language. As long as it brings value to either you or somebody else, you should consider investing at least 1 hour a day in it. But we can't forget the most important part of the winter arc, and that is the Reforge arc. See, when you think of the winter arc, it's all about that dark, brooding, cold attitude and getting comfortable with pain. The Reforge arc is the epitome of it. This is the arc where you start working on yourself physically and mentally. By training yourself physically, you put your body through rigorous training and exercise, and you start working on your own physique. By training yourself mentally, you discipline yourself to refrain from eating junk and sticking to a diet plan. And during this arc, you need to commit to forging your body into the best shape you can get it and achieve maximum potential. You've got to commit to some workout plan or some diet plan. Yes, it's going to be painful, and yes, it is going to suck, but you must embrace the suck. Look me in the eyes and embrace the suck. Because at the end of the 3 months, no one is even gonna recognize you. Because at the end of the 3 months, nobody's gonna even recognize you. If you have been thinking about starting your own winter arc, this is your sign. I am doing mine right now with the guys inside Shonen Strength. The training arc games are already on their way. Just 3 months of pure, raw focus and energy. So if you're ready to lock in, step into your arc. But Kevin, 3 months isn't enough time to get in shape. Listen, a lot of people think that, and that's actually not true. In fact, you can watch this video right here if you want to learn how to get shredded and jacked before the new year ends.